So here's the thing about Princess Carolyn's need to work in Bojack Horseman. As anyone who's watched the show knows, Princess Carolyn is, simply put, a workaholic. Whereas Bojack used his sparse career opportunities as emotional props, Princess Carolyn nearly wholly relied on her professional accomplishments to give her self-worth and her life inherent meaning. I think that a lot of this behavior stems from her childhood, where during her time in North Carolina, her mother largely didn't put much effort into raising her children or her job, really. Now, to be fair, she had a whole litter of kids and alcohol issues, so I do feel bad for her as well, but from the perspective of Princess Carolyn herself, her mother was largely neglectful. This type of parenting can often lead the children to seek comfort and understanding elsewhere, such as through work. As such, PC took the liberty of stepping in for her mother whenever she was unable to take care of her and her siblings, doing her cleaning lady work, providing for her brothers and sisters. It was an extremely stressful upbringing, and Princess Carolyn learned to cope with that by retaining what little control she could through that work and effort she put into helping her family out. I mean, with all of those siblings, her mother didn't really pay attention to her, so to give her self-worth, to make herself feel as if she deserves to be on this earth, has a place on it, she lifts her mother up. She works, she provides for others, and in turn casts aside her own needs. I mean, this is way too much stress for a child to take on, especially one who is navigating high school, dealing with teen pregnancy. It's a lot to handle. Stressful childhoods such as this one can often lead to the development of workaholism later in life, as, like I said, it can sort of provide an escape from the chaos of regular life through small acts that afford the person a little bit of control over their surroundings and earn them that attention, praise, and acknowledgement that they so desperately crave and should be receiving from their parents. Studies have found that workaholism is a self-nurturing, or can be a self-nurturing, type of addiction, where those who do suffer from it aren't seeking any sort of hedonistic desire or sensation, like with drug use, but are rather seeking a sense of fulfillment or a tiny amount of joy that they get from completing a task, because it makes them feel like they have worth, they have made a difference, they have done something concrete with their time. So Princess Carolyn thinks that by doing what her mom can't or won't, it will earn her that respect and attention that she's always craved from her, or at the very least, provide her with a sense of accomplishment to make herself feel good, because the rest of her time she feels largely ignored. As always, I have linked my sources in the description below, but it is interesting when I was researching this how little is documented about what I consider to be, and many others, a very real addiction. It's often really shirked aside, I think, in this country and largely in the world in general, because of how good for business, the economy, people working harder than they should be is. You know, the corporation's not really inclined to tell you that you're working too hard. They're more inclined to tell you you're not working hard enough because they want to make more money. I mean, it's pretty simple. And because it's not associated with any immediate adverse physical effects like drug and alcohol use is, people often brush it aside as something that is not an actual addiction. But it does have the context to be one, based on how difficult it is to break out of this cycle, how it can be used as a coping mechanism, and can lead to an alarming amount of mental and physical effects as well. It is extremely dangerous for people's health and their emotional health to be so invested in their work that they always do more than required. They don't think about other parts of their life. They shirk their responsibilities. There's a lot of damage that could be done in your life, a lot of damage that is similar to other types of addiction. And I think that this is worth exploring more in the scientific realm, even though, of course, that is not my world. Not even remotely. But Princess Carolyn really struggles to break away from this habit of helping her mom for a really long period of time, being the last sibling to actually stay with her mom at home and take care of her. It takes a lot of courage for her to leave and follow her dreams to go to LA and make it big, or fly into the sun, as it were, as her mom relied quite heavily on Princess Carolyn's capabilities and even begged her to stay around for just another year and take care of her for longer, because honestly, her mom pretty much needed Princess Carolyn to keep herself afloat. But she is able to tear herself away from this weight that has always kind of kept her chained down and follow what she actually wants to do do something for herself that she knows will make her happy, which is definitely a step in the right direction for her. Although she definitely didn't learn or unlearn that doing a job is not the only reason you have value as a human being. Once she reaches LA, she's relegated to the role of assistant for an extended period of time, largely probably due to sexism. Her boss strings her along, telling her that she'll eventually be an agent when she's ready, but ultimately filling her days with pointless tasks like buying lingerie for random women who don't want his attention. During this period, she struggles to find purpose in this new life she's built for herself after the big move. Time passes her by quickly, and as we see at the Halloween party in 2009, she realizes that she hasn't been able to do what would actually fulfill her. Ultimately, a lot of time she spends with Bojack, getting small satisfaction from trying to lift him up and fix him, even though he falls back down every time and does not participate in much of anything during this period post horsing around. So while she isn't actively working in what she wants, she still spends her time doing things relentlessly for other people, falling back on those habits that had kept her afloat for her entire childhood, even though her mother is not here anymore. And until she snaps out of it and realizes how much time has passed, she doesn't really think too much about herself or her own well-being, hence, being with Bojack at all. I mean, that's just not good for you, like as a person. Even at her job, she takes this constant boorish behavior and ridiculous treatment for years, working hard at doing these utterly useless tasks in the hope that she eventually will be recognized for it. I do think that part of her fervor later in her career and severe ambition for her work comes from this sexism that she had to undergo, where she's used to having to scratch and claw her way to the surface for attention for any sort of praise, despite the immense amount of effort that she always puts into her work. Thus, once she's on top, she feels that she needs to do the same to hold her position from the men that might take it away at any moment, because, let's face it, it's easier for them in that industry. She needs to go over the top to earn her place at all, to even stand at the starting line. And once she's past it, she has no intention of going back to where she was. So she falls back again on those habits to overwork herself and do the most, focus on that more than her personal life, to be able to keep this job that she does genuinely enjoy. But when she gets the job that she has been longing for, she moves forward with insane amounts of confidence and excitement. Right from the first episode of this series, Princess Carolyn is shown to be all about her career, even defining her persona at work separately from her actual personal life, to which she doesn't really have one. Obviously, she begins by breaking up with Bojack, good move, and we see that they were not really seriously committed to one another for a while, but afterwards, she doesn't really continue her dating life, even after expressing her want for a family in that first episode. I mean, Bojack was cheating on her, not taking her seriously, and they had been dating for more than 7 years. So after she leaves Bojack, what did remain of her personal life is pretty much entirely gone, and she sinks herself further into her work, preying on Todd's rock opera or the Boreanaz's house, trying desperately to get Sarah Lynn as a way to poach Andrew Garfield. And in Say Anything, we really get a lot of insight into why Princess Carolyn continues to act this way, relying on this behavior that she did, I believe, begin learning as a child. As soon as she opens her heart up a little bit, falls for Bojack again, and actually wants to genuinely put aside her work for once, in the face of actual affection, she gets shot down, as Bojack rejects her after his own emotional turmoil crops up. Her leap into faith led her falling deeper into loneliness. It was so heartbreaking to watch her give up this feud with Vanessa Gecko that she had been taking so seriously, that threatens her position at the company that she holds so dear, to actually try to forge a personal connection that could provide her more fulfillment in the long run, and then she gets completely pushed aside. It's so tragic. I'm so glad they did an episode from her point of view, like, immediately when they did this show. So smart. It's honestly pretty logical that she would retreat further into that workaholic state, even calling herself a robot this episode. She denies her own emotions, her own hurt entirely, sinking everything she has into her work to beat Vanessa Gecko and earn that accomplishment of keeping her office and securing her position at Vim. And it does provide her a bit of joy for a moment to get Vanessa Gecko fired and really triumph over this woman. But when her phone chimes to remind her that she's 40, as she looks out over the city, she realizes how empty she still feels, how much she still longs for, and how much, despite her constantly working, she actually wants that full life. She loves her job, yes. She takes it very seriously, yes. But this episode shows us that when given the chance, she would like to build a family. Build a circle full of people who support and love her and that she can love back. Because, let's be honest, she never really had one. Does she talk to her siblings a single time throughout this series? Like, I didn't get the impression they were on great terms, especially Boots. It's quite sad, honestly, because while she definitely relies on work, it's not for lack of trying to branch out. In season 2, she really falls for Rutabaga, who I've been told numerous times that I sound like. Thank you, I'd be honored to sound like Ben Schwartz because he's the best. But once again, he's not someone who actually is willing to commit to her or support her emotionally. In fact, he's still got one foot in the door with his wife, and we know intends to make his way back to her. After cheating, of course, because he's just that great of a guy. So once again, she retreats back into her work after Rutabaga's betrayal, so hurt by it that she cuts him out of the company that they started together and resolves to barrel forward without him, succeeding beyond her wildest dreams and proving to herself that she does have worth, despite how these men have repeatedly treated her. So once again, she relies on her work more than ever for comfort, but eventually she kind of reaches a ceiling in terms of the amount of joy this job, or really any job, can provide her. Once she's running her own agency in season 3 without Rutabaga, she's extremely busy, has no time for herself, and overall finds that it's not exactly what she'd always dreamed it would be, despite the fact that she had committed to be a robot a few seasons prior. She can't shake the fact that she does need more than this job, that at night, when everyone leaves the office and the chaos subsides, she is still lonely, and as much as she does kind of love that chaos, she doesn't want to love it by itself. In love and or marriage, she expresses frustration at her lack of free time and ability to date, because as much as she loves working, she is still a person. She still needs support other than from her career to live a full life and to have the confidence to go into work every day and take her enemies down, really. So eventually, she takes the one night that she has and meets up with 3 blind dates, one of whom is actually a great match for her. Oh my god, I'm just getting the 3 blind dates. Is that a reference to 3 blind mice? And then she ends up with a mouse? I am just getting that now. Anyway, he actually ends up being a great match for her. It's interesting that she's kind of averse to dating in this episode, as I believe she's kind of afraid to open herself up to that sort of hurt again. It was always hard for her to do anyway, but after being shot down so many times, it's only gotten more difficult. Because when she was talking to Judah, she didn't actually want 3 dates. She was joking about never having dates. She was pretty much committed to continue this lifestyle for the foreseeable future until Judah kind of intervened. Maybe because he saw that she wasn't as happy as she thought she would be. He is that kind of guy, who knows? Learning a lot about this one episode from this video. But unfortunately, she doesn't really take the time to commit to this relationship with Ralph the mouse. To be fair, she can't really just make time for herself. It's not possible, as her business would likely crumble to the ground without her, and they can't afford to hire much help since they're still new, but still, she doesn't allow herself that potentially extremely positive and beneficial relationship. She chooses her career over that type of romance every single time. And during all this success, she becomes so focused on her career, her own life, that she kind of blinds herself to the plight of those who were really going through the same thing as her. This is something that Princess Carolyn kind of struggles with throughout the entire series, you know, leaving Todd to fend for himself in prison and being rather cold to those around her in general in favor of professional success. Or, specifically in Brat Brat Pew Pew, when she, at first, doesn't really consider Diane's position, objecting to their fake abortion plan, and even lashes out at her protests by accusing her of not appreciating what she has. Princess Carolyn is a very thoughtful person, though. While her career may blind her at times, she does try to do right by those around her, and thus makes it up to Diane and assures her that she doesn't have to explain her decision to anyone, especially not her. Even in season 6, though, she loses touch with her come up in Hollywood as an assistant and attempts to take advantage and destroy the new assistants movement simply simply to make her own career easier and make herself more money. Really, honestly, not even. It's just reserving the right to treat people like trash. I mean, this is a great turning point for her development, and I'm glad that they actually addressed this. It shows how far she's come by having her prevent the collapse of this unionization and helped get the assistants at least a fraction of what they deserve. It also shows how she's depending less and less on that high-powered career woman persona for comfort, and isn't separating her morals as a person from the person she is at her job. But in Old Acquaintance, her career takes a short stumble, as it was bound to eventually, and as a result, her self-worth takes a really tough hit. I mean, things can't stay perfect forever, no matter how good you are at your job. It's just the way things go sometimes. And with PC increasingly relying on her job more and more to provide her happiness and value, she ends up taking bigger and bigger risks to fulfill that part of herself that needs that success, needs to feel useful. Every time she succeeds, she needs more. She climbs higher, reaches further, and that ultimately overextends her and causes this fall downward. She even lashes out at Judah due to her own insecurity, unable to handle this loss of such a big piece of her business, and tries to find someone else to blame but herself for this lack of satisfaction, because she doesn't really want to address those feelings of negativity inside her, those feelings of worthlessness, because she never really learned how to deal with them. The only thing she learned how to do was distract herself by working. However, though, I will say she does quickly realize that it's not Judah's fault, then sinking deeper, unfortunately, into her own self-loathing and declaring that everyone is perfect except for her. But after this defeat, as her company loses more and more money and she's forced to shut it down, she still can't shake that part of herself that wants to work, and goes on to find her new passion, management, which is basically the same as her previous one. I think that is the point. She is framing it for herself in a way that makes sense, since she already theoretically gave up her agency and that job, but in reality she does just want to return to that world. I mean, as many side characters point out, they're basically the same job. She is just this type of accomplished person that enjoys those crafty solutions she needs to come up with. Her brain does seem to be wired to make perfect connections and churn out ideas with little effort on her part. She's just a natural. I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing either, despite Ralph's reaction to it. I think Ralph reacting negatively and trying to steer her away is why she declared, "Oh, I just needed a different type of work," because it's more acceptable to him. But in fact, I think Ralph being so apprehensive is a large reason why these two actually weren't compatible. He didn't really want her to work. She didn't need to. He was rich. Assuming that it was inherently bad for her, but he didn't understand that it was actually a wholly necessary part of her character that she needs to feel full. She has multiple sides. She doesn't need to spend her entire life in the workplace, but there's nothing wrong with enjoying having a job and finding gratification in your career. In fact, I'd consider you extremely lucky for being able to do so. Really hard in this day and age. The job market is a nightmare. So season 4 largely sees her finding kind of that balance, navigating this new management company and her relationship with Ralph, as well as her desire to start a family. But I think there's still a bit of Princess Carolyn needing to feel accomplished to feel good about herself, especially considering her fervent insistence that they not look at other options and she have the baby herself, or in stupid piece of shit, when she's working with Rutabaga again and apparently cannot turn it off. Again, wants to pull a late night, wants to stay in the office indefinitely and work and come up with a solution that makes her feel good about herself. But having the baby on her own would have given her a great feeling of merit, of use, the most, perhaps, of her entire life, since it would be putting her directly in the position that her mother was in and failed in, and she would be able to demonstrate her own care, retroactively correcting her own past, and working hard to do so. However, some things just don't happen, and Princess Carolyn unfortunately can't have a baby on her own. But her frustration and disappointment of not being able to do so leads her to blow up her relationship with Ralph, exploding on him when he suggests alternate methods for starting their family. She tries to fall back on her career after this extremely personal loss of Judah, her unborn child, and of her boyfriend, but again, professional accomplishments are not always built on the most solid ground, and once again, it all crumbles beneath her, leading her to fall into a deep depression. This is what I'm talking about when I say that there are definitely adverse effects to workaholism. Yes, it may get you to the position that you want to be in your career. Sometimes it doesn't, even. Working hard does not always guarantee success, despite, what people in this country will tell you. But if all you do is work and sink all your happiness into it, you are literally setting yourself up for failure one day. Because like I said, things aren't going to be great indefinitely. You are going to stumble at your job at some point, whether it be major or minor. And in this dark period where she's really struggling with her purpose or grappling for any source of light, randomly, she manages to find Filbert. Really, this show only connects with her on a surface level, matching the name of the baby she would have had if it hadn't miscarried. I mean, she basically didn't even read the script before she started pitching it around, and as we know from the extensive time we spent on the set in season 5, Filbert fucking sucks. But this time, it is a little bit different. She is not taking this task on alone. Yes, she does sign Bojack's name for him and is then required to ask him for help, but it is the push that allows her to realize the benefit of doing so. And her finding Filbert, that renewed sense of purpose in her career, allows her to reconnect with those from her personal life. I love the quote between her and Bojack so much at the end of season 4, where when she declares that it's so hard to need other people, Bojack simply states, and she agrees. It is difficult to admit that, especially with the past that she's had, or Bojack's had, where she feels she needs to do everything by herself. She needs to have total control. That's what has given her value for so long. Her life raft, really. But once you do accept it, it makes things so much easier. Having people around you, a community to lighten the overall load, is something that is incredibly important for everyone's development. In real life too. Like I've said, a great job alone is not enough. And we can see this pretty blatantly in PC's arc, because after Filbert begins, she opens herself up to help more often and ends up achieving the life that she actually wanted. While the adoption process in season 5 is long, grueling, and oftentimes completely unfair, almost so much so that it looks like a scam, she is willing to look for that help in finding the family that she's always wanted to have. Now, there's also a lot of work that still has to be done with regard to Princess Carolyn and her obsession with work itself, as we see when she visits Sadie to interview for her child in North Carolina. I'd like to really point out that a ton of what happens in this episode is not her fault, as people really just won't stop calling her and requiring her to fix problems for them. When she told them to stop whining like a little bitch, I was like, okay, but stop it. But ultimately, it gives the impression, at least to Sadie, that she'd choose her career over the needs of this baby. However, she's able to overcome this right at the end of this very season, where after Filbert is canceled, she doesn't stay as she normally would to plan out second chances and do everything she could to save the show. Instead, getting a second chance for a family, she immediately leaves, seeing the opportunity in front of her and definitively choosing her potential child, going to North Carolina and securing Ruthie, and in turn, her fulfilling future. It really took Princess Carolyn hitting this sort of rock bottom and having her company kind of crumble completely around her to be able to find this renewed sense of purpose and ability to ask for help, because ultimately that's what led her to go to Bojack and eventually get the help she needs with her baby as well. It kind of goes hand in hand with her. But it's funny, after all this time spending so much of her skill set in the professional arena, she kind of struggles with this new personal endeavor that she's embarked on with Ruthie. I mean, Vanessa Gecko is the one who encourages her to treat Ruthie as if she's a client, as if this is a job, because in a way, it kind of is. And since that makes sense to Princess Carolyn, all she has to do now is the best job she can, and hope that the emotional connection, and for Princess Carolyn, it does. She really connects with Ruthie, feels that motherly love, and ends up forming a lifelong bond with this baby as she has always wanted to. So much so that she wants to take time away from her career to spend time with Ruthie. Not all of it, but she shows that she understands the balance that needs to be struck in order for her to excel in life, in order for her to be happy. She has Judah, Ruthie, and a job that she loves, and she needs to make time for all of them. It's not easy, but it is possible. I appreciated these lessons, this depiction of workaholism, and especially the end of Princess Carolyn's arc a great deal, as a lot of media portrays these two roles, like a mother and a professional career, as kind of mutually exclusive, when in reality it is indeed possible if you open yourself up to help and have a strong support system. And really, it's Bojack who helps her to do this by encouraging her to hire others, take that burden further off of herself, and enjoy the life that she's built after she declares that she's stuck at the office doing so much stupid bullshit. It truly is a beautiful end to her arc, and one that is so deserved after all the heartache and perseverance that comes with Princess Carolyn's feisty spirit. But overall, Princess Carolyn really does struggle a great deal over the course of the series with workaholism. She struggles to tear herself away from her job, to steer her thoughts away from work, because when she solves those problems, she feels like someone who is making a difference, someone who deserves to be in this world, someone worthy of love. Simply put, it makes her feel good about herself for a little bit. But ultimately, what Princess Carolyn's arc teaches us is that work alone cannot sustain us, and throwing all of our eggs into one professional basket is not a way to build a fulfilling life, and can often lead to more pain and heartache. And it's not so easy to break out of this cycle, because workaholism at the end of the day is an addiction. It has a strong pull on emotions. It is uniquely capable of manipulating our biggest insecurities and fears, taking advantage of our anxiety, and causing us to do harm to ourselves. It takes a lot of work to realize when you are doing that type of damage to yourself, to open yourself up to help from others, and to be able to balance the scales of your life. Not always spending your time at the office, giving more time for your loved ones, doing more things just for you, because you need a break every now and then. It's just a fact of how humans work, or pink cat ladies, I guess. But again, this is an incredibly poignant arc. I learned so much from Princess Carolyn's journey, and I hope that you guys learned something too. If you did, consider liking, subscribing, commenting, do all that wonderful stuff to join me for this YouTube journey that we are taking. And if you want to contribute even further, you can go to patreon.com/PosiTVty. That's PosiTVty. There you get extra content in the form of unedited essays and all these videos before they come out on YouTube. But thank you so much for watching, as I said before, and let me know what you would like to see next. I'm always open to suggestions from you guys. See ya!